all love vibrations. It's your brother Solofedo Pumanga Katebe, the Lenyora of the sky, and we are here to really build our ladders towards the sky together, discussing philosophy, spirituality, art, entertainment, all that intertwines us and our minds. This is for the truth seekers and the truth finders and the knowledge sharers. You know, we're creating our own community, our own genre once again. You know, I think that trying to really think about the algorithms and where we fit in the algorithm and in the overall zeitgeist, are we going to be a space that just talks about everything because that's what people are into and become shock jocks and become gossips? That's not the kind of post that we're here to create. We're creating the type of place where we're sharing knowledge. I mean, no one is all knowing, and when we create a space for knowledge to exist, everybody gets uplifted to it. So this is a conversation, which means that as I discover and I share, if you discover, then you share, you know, and then we continuously share and grow together. I think the basis that we're going to start talking about today is actually South African art and politics. You know, that's a big one. And what would make me an authority on the topic is because, you know, I am a founder of a conscious art movement. We have made political impact and spiritual change for people in our movement, you know, thus far, especially towards the late end of the 2010s, you know, but that's not the reason we're talking about it. We're talking about it right now because it's actually now a matter of censorship. Art is under censorship. Therefore, the human expression is being violated, is being strangled, and it's a very dangerous space for us to be in, because now they're pushing AI, and now the one thing that AI can't compete with is genuine human expression. The AI already replicates that, and therefore, based on who owns it, commercialized. So you and I are being commercialized. They are taking who we are and they're turning it into a product. But that's not the crux of the situation. Let's talk about South Africa, politics, art. Our artists, the Huma Sigelas, you know, the Huma Sigelas of the world, are who actually created a greater sense of awareness of the conditions that our ancestors were living in under apartheid. So the Miriam Makebas, the Huma Sigelas, those are the people that would actually sing about what's happening in our country, and then that would also create a pop culture conversation about those realities, and therefore topple down and become the sanctions that would weaken the apartheid government, and then therefore lead us to a closer sense to what we're calling freedom today. You know, essentially, the road is still long. We're still on the journey in reclaiming ourselves, and that's definitely part of what this conversation we're always going to be having on the podcast is about, you know. And it's not us versus them, the them that we're talking about, right? It's not based on a race, a faith, a country, or a color. Anyone who's moving with darkness is the enemy of all, you know what I'm saying? And us who are moving with the light are friends to each other, whether we realize it or not. You know, we're all helping each other embrace and enjoy this life more. You know, every form of inspiration that we have, that we contribute, makes life overall for us better overall. That disclaimer is very important because the conversation is very heated, you know, so it's going to be something that detractors are going to try and frame like some form of discrimination, but it's just pattern recognition at this point. So now, when we get to the state of where we are at, where we understand that art, our general human expression, can also work as a political tool that emancipates us, and then we get ourselves to the current situation of what happened recently between Gayton McKenzie and an esteemed artist named Gabrielle Goliath. You know, so Gabrielle Goliath is a human being that really created art that was really centered around the vulnerable being exploited, you know. And I won't say that that's what it was about. The art was about children, women and children, especially in the South African context, with the gender-based violence conversation that we've been having for the past decade. That's how long we've been having this ongoing conversation. That might not be how long you've been having this problem. It isn't, because at the end of the day, we come from a violent past. It has been a violent 300 years, and we're still shedding, the identities that come with being formed by violence as a people, So now Gabrielle's conversation extended all the way. It's about the vulnerabilities of women and children, and it extended all the way to the conversation about Gaza, about the Middle East, and about the women and children and men being genocided by the Zionist government. You understand? So now, when we're talking about that and being invited to Venice to depict and show that art, they had accepted her. The Venetians had accepted the work that she was going to share, and at that point, our Minister of Arts and Cultures decided to really do the work of the Zionists and block her, because at the end of the day, he is a Zionist-funded politician, and she's just an artist trying to share her truth, because at the end of the day, gender-based violence is a global fact. It is part of the violent consciousness that we've been under for some time now. So if she wants to spread her message and speak about how said people can reclaim themselves, how said people can protect each other, how said people are being affected, it's a conversation that is allowed to happen. Because at the end of the day, art is just a conversation. And now when you're blocking art from being depicted, she's being kicked out of galleries, so that also makes us really have to wonder, how deep does the rot go? If people can influence our politicians, if people can influence, they own our galleries. You know what I'm saying? Now, like I'm saying, this isn't the platform to throw hate on any one particular group for anything, because like we're saying, we're building the stairs to the sky. We're always trying to uplift, motivate, and grow together. So when anything goes against that, we're definitely going to speak on it, because we need to get to a resolution. At the end of the day, like, I can understand how some people feel very sensitive because of the narrative that they have, but with the narrative that we have, this looks identical to what we experienced as a people, to what our grandfathers experienced, to what our fathers experienced, to the trauma that we are still navigating around. Because at the end of the day, I'm communicating to you in English right now. I could be communicating to you soon, but worse off, even that identity has its own complications, because technically, I should be speaking in Tegela. But these type of regimes that create genocide for the sake of colonization, they erase these senses of selves and these human expressions from existence and leave the other people on the wayside. You know what I mean? And now, because you come from countries or cultures that are less violent, right? Now you are a victim. And I think that is a relevant human conversation overall. So it's a brilliant conversation for an artist to be having on their platform in any fashion. So because it's a valid conversation, it's not something that should be banned. But that's what this person, Gabriel Kolar, went through. So I'm saying it is something that we should be concerned about, because this is how it starts, And we start little by little to see how much it will take. And listen, my commentary on this is later than I wanted it to be. I probably would have wanted to talk about this 2 weeks ago, a month ago. But I think that's a good thing, because now we're keeping the conversation going with regards to this. Because I can tell you, in the same way, these are all interconnected conversations. When you talk about Cape independence, it's the same thing. It's different branches of the same organization, of the same mentality, of the same violation of human rights. At the end of the day, now they push this Cape independence. They want to start this little block, and then when I say, we started here, they've already violated by starting to call the Xhosas in the Western Cape refugees that are from Eastern Cape. Do you understand? Those are the people that were found there hundreds of years ago. You understand? The Xhosa language has clicks in it because the figment of creating like a separate Khoisan people, like they were not intertwined with the Bantu people of this country and giving them fictitious names, is another problem that we're solving from us. But the Xhosa people are indigenous to Cape Town, and so it starts with that small piece, and then step by step they create and expand their territories. The same way it started out in Israel. Israel was registered. It was an idea. It's not the same thing as transferring the information from the Bible and then next thing they get space. No, the British had power over that space of territory that they gave to the people who are Israelis now, And I think that was the year 1945. I'm gonna actually have to fact check, but I think it was like 1945, 1935, around those times. I know that it was the same year that apartheid was registered here in South Africa, which is why I'm trying to say that all these things are interconnected, and us pretending like what's going on with our neighbors is something irrelevant to us is exactly how the globalists were. So it goes to say that the final statement on Indabaga Gigro Goliath is that she has been wronged, and as a people we need to find a way to stand together and make it known that or make it difficult. I think we shouldn't make it so easy for people to try and operate within our country and censor us, because at the end of the day we all have a right to our existence, and if people are to silence the reality that you can see with your own two eyes, it's like mass gaslighting, So that's where I started on that topic. And the next topic is something that's also really inflamed right now, that I feel like everybody's still finding their way on how to navigate it, and that's the Epstein files, and all of these things still relate to your artistic expression. It still relates to the political reality that you live. It's not just some fringe topic on the side. It does affect you. It's just that it takes steps in between in affecting you. And that's what we're going to discuss here. How to with some regards to these Epstein files. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, this gentleman, I'm not going to give the full background check on this guy, right? I'm just going to say that he worked in American finance. He worked, even though he was unqualified, he worked in a lot of Ivy League institutions. I know that Jermaine Maxwell's father is also the author to American textbooks. Therefore, he's the author to the American reality. So when we talk about this topic, that's how far we're stretching and going, is that these are the people who pull the levers on what we are calling reality. Even your aspirations, you need to actually really even review them and feel like, is that a carrot that they've been dangling in front of me all along? Is the idea that I grew up on hip hop and I grew up on rap and therefore capitalism and capitalist rhetoric, is that what leads to my emancipation or not? Or have I been bamboozled? Because at the end of the day, these are people who are controlling the media, who are controlling figures in the media, who are controlling figures in politics, So it's such a big conversation, it's such a big elephant that maybe you even need to figure out how do we eat this elephant piece by piece, And I think the way I'll break it down is that in this human experience, we are existing on a minimum of 3 levels, That's your body, your mind, your spirit. And whether at this point, consciousness, right? Consciousness, especially at this AI point, it's not a belief. So when I talk about my spirit, I'm not talking about from a place of belief, it's a fact. It's a fact that there is a higher existence beyond my flesh. It's a fact that there have been people there's been a man who had absolutely no brain matter in his brain because of cancer, but then he was still able to walk and talk. Where was that personality transmitting from? Because we now try and pretend like everything is stored in the brain. But not to get too complicated, what I'm trying to say is that there's no greater time to be a person of the light, to be prayerful, I don't even want to force everybody to be religious, but you need to have a relationship with a higher force, because if the people pulling the levers, if the bankers, if the politicians pulling the levers of your life are now all conducting rituals together to be able to put power behind legitimate life-changing decisions that affect you, then that means that, the confirmation of the devil is the confirmation of God. You understand? So I think a lot of people are feeling static because it's like, what do I do knowing that these people are committing violence in private areas together in order to give power and energetic frequency to a political decision, to a financial decision that affects the whole world. What I'm trying to say is they read those emails and found out that Bill Gates was talking about planning a pandemic all the way 2070, all the way in 2050. You understand? And that he's in league with this guy who sees himself as a witch doctor, who sees himself as a person who can make spiritual threats. You know what I mean? This is such a mind change. I can feel crazy talking about it. I know I'm not, because I've read it and I've seen it, and at least I'm also gifted enough to have the eyes to have seen things even before this climax, that I'm even wondering, it's like, if the institutions that have been manipulating us are also the ones disseminating the information, what is the correct agenda right now? Is there an internal warfare going on with these bodies, or are they playing us? But you give direction to the conversation. This guy was running a blackmail operation. That's one of the main tenets of what he does. You do heinous acts. Those heinous acts serve as a ritual, and a binding ritual. I also have you on camera, and now you do that bidding. But it also seems like some of these people who are blackmailed were doing it on the regular. I don't even know if they're doing it on the regular because it pleases them, or because it's like a subscription, you need to keep renewing it. Now, even as they keep renewing it, maybe they grow and have a taste for it. But the depth of that conversation, because I don't even really want to dip into the gruesome aspect of it, because I think that that's what chases people away from the conversation. And I think that yes, I'm a person of the spirit, right? But I want to even be able to have this conversation with people who consider themselves intellectuals, who can only believe in these things that they can taste and touch. You understand? Science itself says that reality goes beyond that, but I want to humor you and make you understand that we have to speak about those things, because let's say we were talking about people going on a pilgrimage. People drive all the way to specific locations for spiritual celebrations. This is not an insult. I'm using it as an example. People go to Moria. Now, you can't talk about the full aspect of people going to Moria, right, without speaking about the spiritual intention between why people are driving so far to a specific city together to praise God in their way. You understand? So look at this in parallel, in a sense of those people are doing it for light. That is what they have communicated to us. But I'm saying that there are other people who do the same type of things. I'm going to go to an island. I'm going to partake in specific practices. I'm going to consume specific things. And then it's going to have a particular psychoactive effects on me. And then we're going to take another action and agenda after that. I think the important part is when it comes, especially when you're a religiously based person, and now okay, a lot of the information I've gotten about God has also been tampered with, and when people talk about the contradictions that they can find religion, that's how something that's tampered with is going to be, and I think the beauty of what's going on, right, is you can have greater faith in knowing that there is grander purpose in reconnecting with your spirituality. You know what I mean? Now, as you're reconnecting with the spirituality and tapping back into the light and becoming a person new, because at the end of the day, I'm known as Papa Woke and the guy who tells everybody love is the highest vibration. That affirms that we've actually always been on the right frequency, you know, by understanding that, okay, sharp, there's a lot of confusion that is being thrown at us consistently. Like how we grow up on hip hop, we grow up on rap, but all of our idols or drug dealers or drug addicts. Now when you know with okay, these people are controlling that part of the media, you know with okay, at the end of the day, people all want you to tap into your purpose and your highest self, right? And they are continuously influencing you and you are, especially as an African person, especially as a black person, you're the person who has no military. We don't even have our own bank. Why are we a constant target as also probably like the large majority of people on planet Earth? Why are we the people important to distract? So that also affirms that we need to get to know ourselves. We need to get to know ourselves and to know who are our people before they were interrupted. Even if you have to find out in your bloodline, let's say you're those people who believe that ancestral veneration is witchcraft, you're going to need to understand that witchcraft. Not to say that you're going to need to practice it, but you need to tap back into yourself, because if they can change Yeshua's name to Jesus, right? Even though J is the newest letter to be added to the alphabet, J is not a Hebrew letter. They changed his name. You understand? So if people are, and I think also even, you know, especially if you are a strict Christian, right? I think you can be affirmed, even if maybe you are those people who are kind of misled to think that the Israel in the Bible and the Israel that was politically created by people who are in the utmost darkness, you know, you can feel confident that at the end of the day, even in those emails, even in those conversations, the number one being or figure they consider an enemy is Jesus, you know? So at the end of the day, it's not like you're going to throw out the baby with the bathwater, but we got to actually tap into our inner baby, you know, tap into our inner purity, tap into our inner light and understand that and use that as the trampoline to make ourselves contributors. So even the idea behind this platform and the guests that I will have is I want to show us the different people who have tapped into their purpose, tapped into their love and given it. Because I say things in very complicated ways because sometimes that's how my brain thinks, but it's very simple. Show love. Show love, find your passion, find your contribution, because that contribution, right, is the warfare that you need to conduct. We don't even need to fight these people with guns, you know. We can fight these people by pursuing our God-given purpose and our God-given light. We're all people and we all have divine light. And if you practice enough and you're given enough resources, you can be a Michael Jackson. You understand? But even Michael Jackson, who tapped into that light, had to now become an enemy from these people. Then you wonder, okay, why would they be mad at him for dancing? But at the end of the day, you felt inspired. You felt, and how inspiration really drove you. That thing is of value. That thing builds kingdoms. That thing builds families. That thing unites societies. That thing is that God's light just tapped into us. And now distorting that light is their modus operandi. That's the motion and that's the motive. So I think that's what we should be operating on really tapping back into ourselves and really not getting distracted by Zitos or Krava, because I mean, yes, definitely. Listen, I like nice things like everyone else, but we have always been told and we have always known that materialism kind of leads to the distortion of the soul. You understand? And now you're selling your soul. And this is who you've been selling your soul to. That's what is being exposed. You are aspiring to be in this cross and this brass of people that are willing to drink human blood for the sake of their agenda. Now, you need to realize, are you that kind of person? Are you about that life to that degree? Because if you're about it, listen, I don't think you and I are in the same conversation. But if you're a person, I'd never do that. There's nothing that would There's nothing that could ever drag me to rape someone so that I can become famous. You know what I mean? I'm not doing it. I mean, let me tell you, I was in the entertainment space. All I really needed to do was turn my art exhibitions into more of a tavern business model. Because capitalism doesn't argue with you. Capitalism doesn't care, right? So if you are in the entertainment business in South Africa, for instance, the business model is already set. I was spending so many years trying to innovate a business model. And then I realized that the market decides, right? And there are macro factors, other businesses, values, they decide. And so many of the rules that govern this capitalist society make it very inevitable what your value proposition is going to end up being. So now if I'm taking people's time and I'm entertaining them, at the end of the day, if I want it to be profitable, I need to tap into promotions, you know, like becoming a sponsored person, right? Sponsorships. And with events, it's alcoholism. Do you understand? Alcoholism and probably also selling products on the side. But what I'm trying to say is, when I knew that I'm creating a movement to conscientize black youth, I can't also be creating more black alcoholics. I ain't hating on every other event and every other person doing their thing. But I knew that I have a specific way. Because if people want a tavern, there are many others. But where is the sacred space for them to create and express themselves and listen to each other? I was the only space at that time. We were the only space at that time for each other, right? But I had to realize that I also want money. I also want growth. I also have high aspirations for myself. I had to realize I need to figure out other ways to make money in order to stay true to my own spirit.